February 29th only comes around every 4 years, usually. In this leap year of 2016, we take a look at some other interesting leap years over the last 2 centuries. (1816) 1816 was called the Year Without a Summer, or 1800 and froze to death, due to unseasonably cold temperatures which lasted throughout the year. Snow fell in New England in June, and frost was common through August. Crops failed, prices skyrocketed, and famine was a real threat. In retrospect, scientists believe this weather was caused by the volcanic eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia, which released sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. The eruption actually occurred in 1815, but the worldwide effects lasted for several years, the worst being 1816. On a brighter note, one group of writers found themselves housebound during severe storms in Europe that summer and told each other ghost stories. As a result, The Year Without a Summer gave us Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. 1848. The year 1848 witnessed a wave of revolutions in Europe, mostly unrelated to each other. Uprisings began in Sicily that January. The February Revolution followed in France. Next, the March Revolution occurred in Germany, followed by uprisings throughout Eastern Europe and Scandinavia. All in all, over 50 countries were affected by unrest. The majority of the mini-revolutions were unsuccessful, but they did lead to the end of feudalism and the beginning of political reform in several nations. Even now, no one's quite sure why 1848 was such a catalyst for revolution. 1876. Some historians mark 1876 as the beginning of the Gilded Age, which lasted until 1900. The United States celebrated its centennial that year, and inventors filed patents for items which we still use today. Alexander Graham Bell filed a patent for the telephone. Thomas Edison filed one for the mimeograph. Nicholas Otto invented the 4-stroke cycle internal combustion engine. The F&J Heinz Company began selling their tomato ketchup. The E. Anheuser Brewing Association introduced Budweiser Lager beer. And Melville Dewey introduced the Dewey Decimal System of cataloging libraries. The Gilded Age was a term invented by Mark Twain to satirize late 19th century society. Some say we're living in a second Gilded Age right now. 1920. The leap year of 1920 was a good one for women. After 50 years of effort, the 19th Amendment passed in August of that year, giving American women the right to vote. A few months later, they helped vote Warren G. Harding into office in the presidential election. Ironically, the previous president, Woodrow Wilson, had suffered a stroke in 1919, and his wife Edith had become the de facto president while he was incapacitated. Behind the scenes, she was referred to as Madam President. Meanwhile, Joan of Arc was canonized in Rome on May 16, 1920, nearly 500 years after she was burned at the stake. 2000. Leap years aren't always every 4 years. When Pope Gregory XIII reformed the Julian calendar in 1582, centennial years not divisible by 400, such as 1800 and 1900, became ordinary 365-day years instead. 2000 was our first century leap year since 1600, but today it's chiefly remembered for what became known as the Y2K bug. The fear was that computers wouldn't be able to handle the switch to 21st century dates, and that technology would fail as a result.
And the estimates we get on our committee are that between 2 and possibly 5% of those chips will fail. And you don't know which 2 to 5% they are, and you don't know where they are.
There were a few glitches as 1999 became 2000, but the world didn't end. Our next century leap year happens in 2400. Who knows what technology we'll have by then?